NTV has learned that it may take weeks, if not months, before all the charred body parts of pupils who died in Thursday night's inferno at the Hillside and Arusha Academy are positively identified. This heartbreaking revelation comes after sources confided in NTV that there are only 2 identifiable complete bodies from the horrific tragedy, and these are the ones who died in hospital yesterday and this morning. Well, is NTV's Ibrahim Karanja with a detailed story of the gory incident that could have been avoided and its aftermath.
With the pain, shock and anguish yet to sink in, pathologists began collecting tissues from the scene of Thursday night's fire to try and reconstruct them as much as they can into bodies. For the first time since the tragic news broke out, they started transporting the charred remains to the new Narumoru Level 4 Hospital mortuary, a facility that has been forced to open its doors ahead of time following this tragedy. This even as parents of missing learners clung onto hope that their young ones would somehow be found alive, and if the worst happens that they are dead, then that they will be easily identified. But this is probably not going to be. Sources say that with the current state of the remains, the only way to identify whose tissues have been collected and taken to the mortuary would be through DNA sampling that will, in the very least, take weeks before conclusion. The government so far has 2 complete bodies, with one being of the people who died while undergoing treatment at the nearby Mary Immaculate Hospital, and the other being of the people who was referred to the Kenyatta National Hospital in Nairobi, but later died Saturday morning.
That quite a number of the children have now been reported as of today, over 20 of them, but these figures are still preliminary because the process is ongoing.
Meanwhile, sources close to investigators have confirmed to NTV that the dormitory was congested and the recommended spacing of 1.2 meter spacing between beds in the same row and the 2-meter alleyway between rows of beds were not met. But the Education Cabinet Secretary Migos Ogamba insists the raised Hillside and Arusha Academy dormitory hosted the right capacity of learners.
It is part of the investigation, let me help him, but from it meets the 1.2 that is required. It's a proper, and it was opening outwards.
The school had a pupil population of 824, and it is mandatory that pupils in grades 6, 7 and 8 put up in the school. There were only 2 dormitories in the school to handle more than 310 boarders. The dorms, one handling all the boarding girls, and the ill-fated one, which accommodated all the boarding boys, were not so far off. It is not clear if other learners from the lower classes were allowed to put up in school by choice. Head of Public Service Felix Koskei admits to government failures in regards to learner safety in schools.
We cannot, year in, year out, lose our children because of one problem or the other, or one challenge or the other, or one failure to adhere to the regulation and conditions that the government has given.
The response time since when the fire broke out also did very little to save the situation. The nearest fire engine was at Kiawara, a distance of 19.8 kilometers, on an extremely rough terrain worsened by the rains that pounded the area recently. But even after this fire engine got on site, the firefighters still had to call for reinforcement from Nyeri town, a distance of close to 50 kilometers. This leaving neighbors to the school to fight the fire with their limited fighting skills and or means. Ibrahim Karanja, NTV.